Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time and depending when you're going to be seeing this video. It's your brother, your boy, courserepscorner. Like I always tell you guys, it's my corner, it's your corner, and it's our corner.
I don't wanna fall in love, I just wanna have some fun, yeah. I don't wanna fall in love.
This company used to be owned by the federal government. The NNPC, Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, was owned by the federal government. And this has created its own issues. Ownership of dividends, how NNPC spends money, and so on and so forth. And it has been a big conflict for SNSs who have been governors before, will know that this has been a conflict between the federating unit, the subnationals, and the federal government. And happily, the Petroleum Industry Act has resolved that dispute. It said that NNPC now belongs to the federating unit. It belongs to the federation. So it has solved that difficulty. And it went ahead to provide a framework of this company must pay taxes and royalties like any other company. And it also must declare dividend like every karma company does. And that those dividends will now be shared by the federating units as benefit from business that they are running. And this has worked well. And we have seen the value of this, excellencies. I have some slides, I'll leave it behind for you. I believe just so that I can save chairman's time. I have some slides I can share with you. The benefit of this is that this company was running at a loss of 803 billion naira in 2018. And today, by 2021, our audited accounts, which are very public, we have made profit of 687 billion naira. Substantial progress. Through our history, we have always lost money. And that's why NNPC doesn't publish its statement account. And when I took over, I consulted the immediate past president and asked him that, look, we have lost 803 billion naira. I think we should be transparent to our shareholders. Let us tell them so that this can help us, and so that people can understand. He agreed that, look, we'll publish it. I remember those of us, not their generation, my generation, when earlier it was indicated that NNPC, that's indication of really bankruptcy. When you lose 803 billion, it's a bad story. And of course, it caused all the commotions that it did in the past, but that helped us. And of course, we have gotten criticism, useful criticism from our shareholders, and ultimately leading to where we are today. But this company cannot continue to do well, Mr. Chairman. It is not possible to do it if its hands are tied. So it is not possible to lift the burden of subsidy on this company and expect it to do well. Because there is provision for subsidy in 2022 and 2023, and not a single naira was provided for the purpose of financing the subsidy. You can put numbers as budget. As we all know, budget performance is different from cash backing for it. And ultimately, while we held back our fiscal obligations of taxes and royalty, we still have a net balance of over 2.8 trillion naira that the federation should have given back to NNPC. And that means for a company, any company, when you have negative 2.8 trillion naira, you're going to bankruptcy. No private company, there's no company in the whole of Africa that can bear this. So it is not possible. You can't have receivables of 2.8 trillion naira and function. And therefore the provision of subsidy is there, but absolutely there is no funding for it. That means it is only on paper. So it doesn't exist. And therefore the conversation today, if you have followed us, is that it's not really about when you take out subsidy, you can do roads, you can do hospitals, and so on and so forth. Very true. But because you don't have it now, so you can't give what you have. That is why I gave a simple example this morning to someone, that families go on hunger. No breakfast, no lunch, no dinner. No family should go through this, but it happens. Because you don't have. If you don't have, you cannot give. And this is exactly where we are, Chairman. So we no longer can bear it because we are going into illiquidity. We are going into default if we continue with this. And the default of NNPC is the default of Nigeria. And I can understand, no finance people are here. When NNPC goes into default and liquidity, it affects every borrowing that this country has done, even the one done by subnationals. Your lenders will come back to you and say, look, your country can no longer pay. And of course, this is not a situation of the Occupation. The only way you can stop this is to stop this conversation around subsidy. I remember when Mr. President announced that subsidy is gone. In 24 hours, the bond market appreciated. It's nothing else other than the statement around subsidy and balancing of the FX market. These two elements is a major concern of every investor all over the world. Every partner that we have is worried about what's your FX regime and how do you deal with your subsidy. Because they know that this subsidy constitutes huge amount of money and it will not be, the country may not be able to survive and pay its debt. So it's very clear that everybody understands this. Imagine, before today, the average subsidy level is 400 billion every month. Just imagine. That means every month you can do one major capital project from money that you do not have. This is really what it means. There's nothing anyone can do. This is what it means. Now, there's this common argument that, oh, the masses will suffer, that we're going to have problem with the masses, and so on and so forth. I agree that once you increase price of disproportion as it has happened, you will have impact on taxation. Impact on inflation, no doubt about it. But it's very typical also. It goes up and it comes down. The market determines what happens next. But you can only do this. Even the inflation in very many countries, Excellency, it goes up when you have the economic indices becoming difficult. It may not just be about subsidy. Many countries do this. There are very many other factors that can make inflation to go up. But with those, prices go up. And you have to deal with it, you have to live with it, you have to contain your consumption, you have to increase your productivity so that you can change that balance. That's why always you have this conversation around GDP growth and so on and so forth. That happens. And Mr. President's target is to have GDP of 7%. So you can't have this if you have this distortion in your demand and consumption patterns. Very many of us here, and for very few exceptions of people in this room, each one of us has at least 2 cars in his house. And for very many of us, more than this, including myself. And of course, all of us, the elite class, including me, I'm not excluding myself, Excellency, that were the ones with the SUVs, 2, 3, 4, even our families do. And when you buy fuel of 100 liters in an SUV, you are literally subsidizing each liter with 300 naira for all of us. Just imagine what happens, you know, when you can actually preserve that. And of course, I'm also going to share some data with you. Even the consumption itself is clearly skewed through locations or states where the level of economic activity is higher than the others. It's very understandable, because that's where people can afford cars: Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Port Harcourt, and Kano. So over 48% of the total fuel that is distributed, it is always coming from states where economic activities are higher. That means it's those who have that are being subsidized. This is the reality. That's why we say earlier, we don't mean that there's no poor people in Abuja. They are there. They exist. They are there. They may be the receiving end, but largely we are subsidizing those of us who can actually afford it. And of course, the collateral cost is that no infrastructure, no hospital, everything that you can imagine. And ultimately, today we're in a different situation. We're in a situation where we can't afford it anymore. And that's why it's important to party to realize that changing the consumption pattern of individuals, including myself, but I believe that anyone who has gone to fuel station today, you would have paid at least 3 times what you used to do, or 2.5% of what 2.5 about what you're doing. Just let's take that 3 times what you did. But I'm sure your car will not go back to the station again. You will be careful where you go. This is human nature. And the meaning of this is that you are going to preserve your money for something better. That means even if you are going to dash people, and we all do, even if you are going to people, you will have more money to give to people that can benefit from it. Or you can now invest in something. That's what happens in every country. Once you have price increase, people change their consumption patterns, resources become available to them, and they end up using those resources for something else. You have now a deflection of resources to something better. Even at the level of the individual, people won't come out of their house if they don't have to. This will happen. Then before you probably have more quality time with your family. And many things will come as a result of this change. But more importantly, it solves the problem of the distortion that we have, Excellency. It helps the problem of distortion that we have in our country today around the consumption of petroleum motor spirit. And I know this is a very bold and courageous action taken by government. No doubt it will come with its challenges. Can we do something about it? Yes, absolutely yes. In the sense that interventions can happen. For instance, you have a 100 naira challenge. If you can save the 100 naira, you can actually do 10 naira of support. This perhaps that is what you can do. And by the way, it's not just for the APC, it is also very clear that every presidential candidate during the last election campaign have said that we must take out subsidy. Anybody said it's fraud. Everybody has said that there's something wrong with this. And I've said it over and over, and I can be quoted, sir, without missing words, sir. Excellency, you cannot stop fraud around subsidy. Whenever you have a bit rate, you can't stop it. Let me give you an example, sir. When you take a truck of PMS, 60,000 liters, from Lagos into Maiduguri, legitimately, what you make is about 300,000 naira. If that's 300,000 margin that you are expected to service the station, pay your workers, pay for fuel in the fuel station. We all know that it's not possible. 300,000 naira is impossible for you to meet this. Now, when you take the same fuel across your border, you make 12 to 17 million naira as well. I don't see how anyone can stop this. It is impossible. You have 4,500 kilometers of land border. And without missing words, we all know at the border states, everyone that of us now, I'm sure you all know, anywhere you have a border state, my state, my elder brothers here, he knows this. Jibia, Ilaro, everywhere that you can think of. They are perfect example of disconnect. In Ilaro, you have 300 fuel stations from kilometer 10 into Ilaro. I don't think Ilaro needs more than 2 fuel stations. 300. Yes. Jibia, you have at least 120 stations from kilometer 10 to Jibia. The world, I don't know if anyone is from Katsina State here. I don't think you need more than 1 fuel station in Jibia. In my state, with all the Boko Haram that we have seen, with all the challenges that we have, some of the towns are no longer existing. But yet, you will see filling stations are existing. They are surviving. Because it's arbitrary environment. And this is true everywhere. Now come to the marine when we talk about fraud. And I've said that what we have done, we are open to a forensic audit of what we did. But I can tell you also, audits don't prove anything. And you can stop nothing. For instance, when you bring in a cargo of PMS, and you are able to pay your way through, let's call it what it is. You pay your way through everybody. That means over 13 agencies of government, all kinds of people that you can think of. From the NMPC people, the regulator, everyone in the value chain, MPA, everybody. I can tell you when you take this product back and bring it back and sell to NMPC or anybody under the subsidy regime, you will make at least $10 million. I don't know how anyone can contend this. How you will not compromise everybody with an arbitrage of $10 million. So you can't stop round tripping. No legislation will stop it. No control will stop it. The only thing that can stop it is take up the arbitrage. And when you do, then you will not be talking about fraud. Well, as long as we have that structure, fraud will be there. And I can only speak about myself. I don't participate. But that's not enough. That's not leadership. It also means that you have a problem, you have to solve it, there must be a solution. It's not technology, it's not engagement, it's not control, it's not military, it's not bringing SS and so on and so forth that do the ultimate solution. which will resolve this, which is to take out the subsidy. That's why we advocated for it over and over until we got to where we are today, that we can no longer afford it. I know this is a 40-year conversation. I'm aware even also that the military have tinkered with it, have toyed with it. When these realities come, this same market situation that we are facing today is what made every government to face it. But they were never faced with the situation that we have found ourselves today, because today we can't afford it. So it's impossible to proceed with this. And it's impossible to continue to do this, and if you don't take this out, you have the dislocation in our total economic system. And of course, you can see a lot of things, people talking out there, pain to everyone. I agree completely. There are pains to everyone, but I also know, yes, I'm a technocrat, but I have a relationship with politicians. I know what happens. I'm an insider. And with all respect, I can't even call myself, I'm not a politician. In the sense of what's politics really, engagement and dealing with others. And I do deeply know that some of these protests and conversations you are seeing out there, many of them are sponsored. So this is a party's call, Mr. Chairman. It is your beat. It's my job to explain what it is. We will fight it. Because it's no longer a matter of fight, you have no option. You can't turn back. Because when you turn back, you will go back to the story I've given you about families who don't have food and they live with the hunger. And that's where we are. So you can't give what we have, what you don't have. And essentially, Mr. Chairman, this is where we are. And I'm happy to be here. I have some documentation that is available to you. I will share it with you, but the key reality is that we have supply today, so there's no panic around supply. Supply is there. It is very, very understandable. When you make such an announcement, you should expect that people will take advantage of it. And really, the market is not really an advantage. It's called inventory recovery. If you don't allow them to sell all stock at the new price, I think I tried to explain this on the television this morning. If you don't allow them to sell at the new price, they will not be able to go back to the market. They can't buy again. So this is normal. So we deliberately sold this and we allow the volumes to come into the market so that they can come back. Otherwise, the market will die completely. And this is very typical. For consumers, it's a very, very short-term thing. It's typical. We have seen this over and over again. Once there's any indication of price, people rush to the fuel stations, they'll buy at the cheap price. But not knowing that it just takes you as long as your tank is filled. Then it will go away. This is also understandable. That means once they come into fuel stations, yeah, they will kill this money. It will go away because they won't come back. And it's already easing out across the country. Yesterday there are so many queues all over the country, but today I can tell you in another day or two, it will completely vanish everywhere in the country, and we will have sanity. But we need your help. This is your mandate. And that for our countrymen to understand that this serves their best interest, because you can't give what you don't have. If you do, we insist on maintaining this subsidy regime. There will be no fuel in the fuel stations. We will not be able to provide. We will go into defaults. Nobody is going to give it. And there's this assumption that, well, when you process it within the country, it's going to be cheap. No. And I tried to explain this morning. The only thing domestic refining does for you, and the most principal thing it does for you, is that it brings the products close to you. Availability and security of supply. Of course, it does create some other benefits, employment, taxes, and so on. The only difference is freight. It takes away the freight. Otherwise, petroleum is priced in the international market. And you can't tell Dangote to call, please reduce your price. So it's not possible. Every borrowing around the oil and gas industry business, including Dangote refinery, is based on international pricing. And he must confirm to them that he will be able to sell at market before they can not pay. So it's not even a matter of negotiation, it's not possible. That means that, local refining is good, it creates its own value, it creates some significant, but definitely not profound change to the pricing of petroleum. It doesn't, it won't. And therefore, this is a brilliant opportunity moment. We can't even turn back. In the past, governments have turned back because they have an alternative. Because the resources are there. Today, the resources are not there and cannot be afforded. And of course, I'm confirming to all that there's supply in the country. We have a line of sight until the private sector is able to come in. They will come in Because once there's alignment of the FX regime, there's a single window of market, which the president has promised that it's going to execute. I've had several engagements, both in level and in the last 2-3 days, that it is very obvious that we're going to have a single FX market. Once that happens, it will be very natural, like you have in AGO. Today, NNPC contributes only about 20% of total AGO imports into the country. We only intervene what is necessary, because the markets satisfy it, because they can price it appropriately at the private market rate, and they bring this product into this country, they sell and recover their money, they go to zone 4 to collect their FX. That's what happens. That's the reality that we are dealing with. And that's why you are seeing that they can do it. Because when you allow that liberalization to happen, it means that people will fight for the expense. And of course, volume will come down. Let me confirm this, Mr. Chairman. It will come down by at least 30% in current level. And I'm sure that's why you're seeing the cars not coming back to fuel station. It will come back by at least 30% of the volume that we are seeing. And that means reduction of FX exposure for our country by at least 30%.